There's a plant in your yard right now with twice the calcium of milk, more iron than spinach, and vitamin K that rivals kale. Your ancestors ate it through famines. Chinese physicians prescribed it for 13 centuries. French bistros still serve it today. But you probably see it as a weed to pull out. This is dandelion, and the reason you've never thought of it as food says everything about what we've forgotten, and nothing about the plant itself. Walk into any medieval monastery garden between the 12th and 15th centuries. You'd find dandelions cultivated deliberately next to lavender and chamomile, not as decoration, as medicine. Gerard's Herbal, published in 1597, describes dandelion as excellent for liver obstructions. Culpeper's Complete Herbal in 1653 recommends it to open obstructions of liver and gall. These weren't folk remedies written by hedge witches. These were official medical texts used by trained physicians who treated kings and nobles. But here's what's remarkable. This wasn't just Europe. Travel east to China in 659 AD. The Tang Materia Medica, one of the most important medical documents in Chinese history, lists a plant called Pu Gong Ying, dandelion. For over 1,300 years, Chinese physicians have prescribed it for liver detoxification, inflammation, and breast health. The same plant, valued independently by civilizations on opposite sides of the planet who had no contact with each other, both arrived at the same conclusion through centuries of observation. This plant heals. For European peasants, dandelions weren't optional. They were survival. Every spring, after months of winter when vitamin C disappeared from diets and teeth loosened in gums from scurvy, the first green thing to emerge from frozen ground was dandelion. They called it the spring tonic, the resurrection plant, the cure for winter sickness. Families gathered dandelion greens the way we go to the pharmacy today, because that's what it was. Free medicine growing wild at the edge of every path and field. They made dandelion wine not for celebration, but for preservation. Fermentation concentrated nutrients into liquid form that lasted through the next winter. One plant giving 5 months of stored nutrition. In French markets today, right now, you can buy pissenlit. That's dandelion. The name literally means piss in bed, named for its powerful diuretic properties, not an insult. A description of medicinal function, the way we'd describe aspirin as a pain reliever. Salade de pissenlit aux lardons is still served in French bistros. Dandelion greens with warm bacon dressing. It's not a novelty dish. It's working-class food that never disappeared because the French never stopped recognizing its value. They even bred cultivated varieties. Amélioré à court plein means improved, full heart. Larger leaves, less bitterness. Bred specifically for food, the same way we bred lettuce and kale. Because to them, dandelions weren't weeds. They were crops worth improving. When Europeans brought dandelions to the Americas in the 1600s, something remarkable happened. Native American tribes immediately recognized its value. The Iroquois, Cherokee, Chippewa, Delaware. They adopted it into their own medicine systems within a generation. They used it as a tonic, for digestive ailments, for skin conditions, for heartburn. These were sophisticated cultures that had been refining plant knowledge for thousands of years. And they looked at dandelion and said, yes, this works. This fits into what we already know about healing plants. Here's what matters. When civilizations on 3 continents, separated by oceans and centuries, independently converge on the same plant as medicine and food, that's not coincidence. That's pattern recognition across human experience. Your ancestors didn't eat dandelions because they had to. They ate them because they worked. So what happened? Why did something so valued for so long become something we see as a nuisance? The story is less about conspiracy and more about what happens when convenience becomes the only value we measure plants by. Let's talk numbers first, because this isn't folklore. This is verified, documented fact from the USDA's own database. 100 grams of raw dandelion greens contains 187 milligrams of calcium. Compare that to milk at 119 milligrams per 100 grams. Dandelion has 1.6 times more calcium than milk, gram for gram. And here's what makes it even better. It comes packaged with vitamin K, which is what your body needs to actually use that calcium. Milk doesn't have vitamin K. You have to get it somewhere else. Dandelion gives you both in the same bite. Iron content, 3.1 milligrams. Spinach, which is famous for iron and what Popeye made us all think we should eat, has 2.7. Dandelion has 15% more iron than spinach. Vitamin K, 778 micrograms. Kale, which we're all told is the king of superfoods, has 482. Dandelion has 1.6 times more. Vitamin A, 10,161 IU. Spinach has 8,424. Dandelion has 1.2 times more. This isn't close. This isn't dandelion is pretty good too. This is dandelion objectively outperforming the vegetables you're paying $4 a bunch for at the grocery store. And it's growing for free in every crack in the sidewalk, every unmowed corner of every park, every neglected edge of every garden. Between 2008 and 2016, universities in Canada, Italy, Poland, and France published research that started confirming what traditional medicine already knew. The University of Windsor showed that dandelion root extract triggers programmed cell death in melanoma cells. The healthy cells were fine, the cancer cells died. The Université de Montréal proved that dandelion leaf extract works as a diuretic, just as effectively as furosemide, which is a pharmaceutical diuretic, but with one massive difference. Furosemide depletes your potassium, which means people taking it have to also take potassium supplements. Dandelion leaf is so rich in potassium that it replaces what it removes. Your body doesn't become depleted. This is biological engineering that pharmaceutical companies spend billions trying to replicate. Jagiellonian University in Poland documented that dandelion root contains 25 to 40% inulin by dry weight. Inulin is a prebiotic fiber that feeds the beneficial bacteria in your gut. People pay $40 for a month's supply of inulin supplements at health food stores. Dandelion root is giving you the same thing for free, plus it comes with everything else the plant offers. Now let's talk about what dandelion does that's actually kind of amazing from an agricultural perspective. It grows in all 50 states. USDA hardiness zones 3 through 10, Alaska to Florida, Maine to California. It thrives in poor, compacted soil that other plants hate. That crack in your driveway where nothing else grows? Dandelion will thrive there because its taproot, which can reach 10 to 15 feet deep, is accessing water and minerals that shallow-rooted plants never touch. This is why dandelion is drought tolerant. While your lettuce is wilting in the summer heat begging for water, dandelion is pulling moisture from deep underground reserves. It requires zero fertilizer because those deep roots mine minerals from soil layers other plants can't reach. And when the plant dies back, all those minerals return to the surface soil. It's actually improving the ground it grows in. It requires zero pesticides because nothing seriously attacks it. It's perennial, which means plant it once and it lives 5 to 10 years, producing continuously. Every plant produces 2,000 to 15,000 seeds per season, wind dispersed, self-propagating. You never have to buy seeds twice. Compare that to lettuce. Lettuce needs perfect soil, constant water, and dies when temperature hits 85 degrees. Dandelion grows in cracks in pavement where nothing else survives, through droughts that kill your tomatoes, in soil so poor that grass won't even grow, and it comes back every year without you doing anything. From any logical perspective, if you were designing a survival food that required zero input and gave maximum nutrition, you'd design dandelion. But it already exists. Nature already solved that problem 30 million years ago. Here's what's interesting about why dandelion became just a weed in modern thinking. It's not that anyone set out to make you forget about it. It's that dandelion doesn't fit the model of industrial agriculture. You can't really commercialize it at scale because the leaves are delicate and wilt quickly, like any salad green. You can't mechanize the harvest easily. It grows best when left semi-wild, which means it's hard to create perfect uniform rows of it the way commercial farming requires. And most importantly, you can't make people buy it every year because it reseeds itself so aggressively. From a business perspective, dandelion is useless. From a nutrition and resilience perspective, it's nearly perfect. So it got relegated to weed status not because it's bad, but because it's not profitable. And over a couple generations, we forgot that it was ever anything else. The knowledge persisted in immigrant communities, in rural areas, in France and China where the food culture never broke that connection. But in mainstream American culture, dandelion became invisible as food, just visual noise in the lawn. Let me show you how to change that. True dandelion, Taraxacum officinale, is easy to identify once you know what you're looking for. It has a single hollow flower stem that doesn't branch. When you snap the stem, white milky sap comes out. The leaves grow in a basal rosette directly from the root crown, and they're deeply toothed, which is where the name comes from. Dandelion, in Old French, means lion's tooth. The leaves look like jagged teeth. The flower is entirely yellow ray florets, with no center disc like a daisy has, just layers and layers of yellow petals. And the seed head is that iconic white sphere that kids blow on to make wishes. There are no toxic lookalikes to worry about. The plant that looks most similar is called cat's ear, which has branching stems and slightly hairy leaves, but it's not toxic, just less pleasant to eat. The real consideration with harvesting dandelion isn't misidentification, it's location. You want to harvest from clean ground that hasn't been treated with chemicals. Your own untreated yard is perfect. A friend's untreated yard with permission. Wild areas away from roads where exhaust residue accumulates. Organic farms with permission. What you want to avoid is anywhere that gets sprayed with herbicides or fertilizers, which means perfect golf course-looking lawns are out. Public parks that get maintained are out, and roadsides are out. When you harvest dandelion greens, cut the outer leaves with scissors and leave the crown intact so the plant regrows. You can harvest from the same plant repeatedly all season. The best time is early spring before the flowers appear, when leaves are most tender and least bitter. After frost also sweetens them because cold triggers sugar production in the leaves. You can harvest continuously from March through May and September through November in most climates. Now let's talk about the bitterness, because this is what stops most people. Modern Western palates have been trained on sweet and salty. We've lost touch with bitter as a flavor category, which is actually a shame because bitter compounds are incredibly valuable nutritionally. The bitter taste in dandelion comes from sesquiterpene lactones, and when you taste bitterness, your body responds by increasing saliva production, digestive enzyme secretion, and bile flow. This is why traditional cultures incorporated bitter foods into meals. They were using food to stimulate digestion, which is especially important before eating heavy or fatty foods. But here's the thing, the bitterness isn't fixed. It changes dramatically based on how and when you harvest and how you prepare the plant. Dandelions growing in rich soil with plenty of water are significantly less bitter than those growing in poor, dry conditions. Plants harvested before they flower are milder than those harvested after flowering. Leaves harvested in early morning contain more moisture and less concentrated bitter compounds than those picked in hot afternoon sun. And preparation method makes an enormous difference. If you blanch dandelion greens by dropping them in boiling water for 2 to 3 minutes, then shocking them in ice water and squeezing out the excess liquid, you remove a substantial portion of the water-soluble bitter compounds. What remains is a green with a pleasant, mild bitterness that works beautifully sautéed with garlic and olive oil, or added to soups, or mixed into pasta dishes. It tastes like a more interesting version of spinach, with a slight tang that actually makes other flavors pop. Here's a French technique that changes everything. About 10 to 14 days before you want to harvest, place a pot or bucket upside down over the growing plant to block out all light. The leaves that grow in darkness will be pale yellow instead of dark green, and they'll be much milder. This is called blanching, and it's how they prepare dandelions for French markets. It's the difference between a salad green that's aggressively bitter and one that has a pleasant, subtle tang. For raw salads, use young leaves and mix them with milder greens like lettuce or arugula to balance the intensity. A warm bacon fat dressing is traditional because fat coats your tongue and mellows the perception of bitterness, while the warmth wilts the leaves slightly, softening their texture. Lemon vinaigrette works on the same principle because acidity counterbalances bitter compounds chemically. What's fascinating is that different parts of the dandelion plant offer completely different nutritional profiles, and traditional cultures knew exactly how to use each part. The leaves are your mineral powerhouse. That's where you get the vitamin K, the calcium, the iron, the potassium. They're also a potent diuretic, which is where that French name piss in bed comes from. But unlike pharmaceutical diuretics that deplete potassium and create dependency over time, dandelion leaf is so rich in potassium that it replaces what it removes. Your body stays balanced. This is elegant design that modern medicine can't replicate without side effects. The flowers contain different compounds, primarily antioxidant flavonoids and carotenoids, that give them that vibrant yellow color. They're edible and have a sweet, honey-like flavor, when you remove the green sepals at the base, which are bitter. You can toss the petals into salads for color and subtle sweetness. Or you can make dandelion flower fritters by dipping whole flowers in batter and frying them until golden. They taste nothing like the leaves. They're sweet and earthy, almost like eating a flour-flavored donut. The root is where things get really interesting from a health perspective. Dandelion root contains 25 to 40% inulin by dry weight, which is an extraordinary amount of prebiotic fiber. Inulin doesn't get digested in your small intestine. It passes through to your colon intact, where it feeds beneficial bacteria, specifically bifidobacteria and lactobacilli. These bacteria ferment the inulin and produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which is the primary fuel source for the cells lining your colon. This is fundamental to gut health, which we now know affects everything from immune function to mood to inflammation levels throughout your entire body. When you roast dandelion root, something magical happens chemically. Clean the roots thoroughly, chop them into quarter-inch pieces, and roast them in the oven at 350 degrees for 1 to 2 hours until they're dark brown and smell toasted. Let them cool, grind them in a coffee grinder, and brew light coffee using 1 to 2 tablespoons per cup of hot water. The roasting process transforms the inulin into a complex mixture of caramelized sugars and brown compounds that create depth of flavor. It won't taste like coffee. It's bitter and nutty with earthy undertones, but it has zero caffeine, which means you can drink it at night without affecting sleep, and it's traditionally used as a liver tonic. The liver connection is worth understanding because it shows up across every traditional medicine system that use dandelion. Your liver processes everything you consume, every environmental toxin you're exposed to, every medication you take, and it can become overwhelmed and sluggish. Dandelion root appears to support liver function by promoting bile production and flow. Bile is how your liver eliminates processed toxins. When bile flow is sluggish, toxins back up, and you feel it as fatigue, brain fog, digestive issues, skin problems. Traditional medicine observed that people with these symptoms improved when they used dandelion root. Modern research is now identifying the specific molecules responsible, particularly taraxasterol, a triterpene compound that has anti-inflammatory and liver protective properties in laboratory studies. Here's where this gets practical. If you're spending money on supplements for gut health, liver support, or inflammation, you might be buying separated, concentrated versions of compounds that exist together naturally in dandelion. A bottle of inulin prebiotic costs about $40 and lasts a month. Milk thistle extract for liver support costs about $25 a month. Anti-inflammatory supplements with antioxidants cost another $30. That's $95 a month for 3 separate supplements. Or you could harvest dandelion for free from clean ground, use the leaves in salads or cooked dishes, and make root tea from dried, roasted roots. Same compounds, no cost, whole food form, which generally means better absorption and none of the fillers and binders that come in capsules. This isn't about replacing medical treatment. If you have a serious health condition, you need a doctor. But for general wellness, for supporting normal healthy function of your digestive and detoxification systems, for getting minerals and vitamins that most people are low in, dandelion is offering you something valuable that you're walking past every day. One important consideration: if you're on blood thinners like warfarin, you need to talk to your doctor before eating dandelions regularly because the high vitamin K content affects how your medication works. Vitamin K is involved in blood clotting, and if you suddenly start eating a lot of vitamin K-rich foods, it can interfere with your medication's effectiveness. If you're on diabetes medication or taking pharmaceutical diuretics, dandelion can enhance those effects, which might mean your medication dose needs adjustment. If you have a latex allergy, you'll likely react to dandelion sap because they contain similar proteins. If you're allergic to ragweed, you might cross-react since they're in the same plant family. Test a small amount first if you're concerned. For most people, though, dandelion is not only safe, it's been used as both food and medicine for over 1,000 years across multiple continents. The track record is long and consistent. If you want to grow dandelions deliberately instead of foraging, you can find seeds from heirloom seed companies. Baker Creek, Johnny's Selected Seeds, Richter's Herbs in Canada, Territorial Seed Company all carry dandelion seeds. Sometimes the wild type and sometimes cultivated varieties bred for larger, less bitter leaves. Or you can transplant from the wild by digging the entire taproot at least 8 to 12 inches deep, and replanting it in a corner of your garden. Water it until it's established, then ignore it. It will grow without any help from you. This is the only vegetable you can plant once and harvest for a decade, with zero maintenance. No fertilizer, no pesticides, no replanting. It just keeps coming back year after year, producing more nutrition per square foot than almost anything else you could grow in that space. Here's what strikes me most about this whole story. We live in a time where people are spending enormous amounts of money on supplements, on superfoods shipped from the other side of the world, on wellness products that promise to do what Dandelion has been doing quietly for millennia. And the whole time, that solution has been growing for free, in places we've trained ourselves not to look. Not because anyone was hiding it from us, but because we stopped seeing it as valuable when it stopped being something you could sell. The French never stopped eating dandelions because their food culture maintained the connection between wild plants and the table. Chinese medicine never stopped using it because their medical tradition never broke. But in cultures where convenience became the primary value, where food became something that only counts if you buy it at a store, we lost touch with an entire category of nourishment that's freely available. The dandelion doesn't care whether you value it or not. It's going to keep growing in every sidewalk crack, every unmowed field, every neglected corner of every garden. It's been doing this for 30 million years, long before humans existed, and it'll be here long after we're gone. The only question is whether you're going to keep walking past it, or whether you're going to bend down and take a closer look at what you've been stepping over your whole life. Next time you spot those vibrant yellow blooms or jagged leaves piercing the spring grass, pause for a moment. Far from being a mere weed, this plant is a powerhouse of nutrition, often surpassing the contents of your own refrigerator. It is a legacy of healing, cherished by physicians and grandmothers alike for over a millennium. There it grows, free, wild, and waiting for you.